your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
What's up, everybody? Brian Engelman, 2016 Conscious Life Expo. Pleased to once again be joined by Miss Laura Eisenhower.
Good to be with you again, Brian.
Yes, good to be with you again as well. So, you've had a busy day, panel discussions, lectures, and you even gave me an astrological reading. Tell us, what did you learn from my chart? Because it's very interesting to me, and I'm new to this, kind of new to this.
Yeah, well, this is an individual that has opened himself up to the deepest afflictions and wounds of humanity, to the point where he personalized it enough to know exactly what to bring in order to transmute it and heal it. And that's, I don't know how else we can actually create change unless we experience it on a personal level, but not a lot of souls are willing to take it on in that way. There's a lot of indications that there's been a lot of past lives where there's been sabotage, which I think many of us have experienced. But in this particular lifetime, there's no way that that can persist without feeling some sort of energetic response to activate and create divine justice. And even though it might involve a bit of divine rage, it's completely justified in order to put people in their place, while also holding the compassion and having the willingness to have a voice in order to inform humanity about the truth, which offers a great education, for all individuals that might not realize that the things that they're struggling with most is wrapped up in a sort of action plan and healing process that somebody like him has a deep connection with. And that's what happens when we take on the deepest wounds and we personalize them. Because our need to heal becomes a resource for others to break away from acting things out or having their head in the sand. So I honor you as a being, and I'm grateful that I got to look at your chart. So
you're grateful you got to look at my chart. I'm grateful that you read my chart. Thank you very much. And I think I want to use divine rage, divine justice. I can see it on a t-shirt. I could see that in something. Divine rage, divine justice. I like that phrase. So, something we were talking about, you're on our radio show, what, like a month ago? Early January, maybe. A month and a half. And something kind of came up and moved right along, because we had a lot to say, we always do. We talked about artificial intelligence. It's a topic that covers every piece of technology, it covers every piece of religion and spirit and soul, and it's an all-encompassing topic. I had some people say, Brian, why didn't you follow up on the AI thing? I wanted to hear more. And I said, you know why? Because we would have went off on another 2-hour tangent and never got to any of the other stuff. So while we don't have 2 hours now, we are in person, which we weren't last time. So artificial intelligence. I don't even know where to begin asking you, what do we need to know about it? So I'm going to hand it to you and say, AI, good or bad? Question mark.
Well, I don't like to, have a duality response where something's good or bad. I think it's an opportunity for us to recognize, just like when we have unwellness in our system, and you're a good example of this. So again, based on the chart that I saw, is you take the things that you recognize as being imbalanced and afflicted in humanity, and your sensitivity to it brings in a solution. So if we're up against something like artificial intelligence and we look at it as a negative, the negative can become a positive because it forces us to expand into a place of wisdom and the opportunity to understand the true relationship between the right and left brain, the balance of spirituality and technology. Transhumanism bypasses spiritual growth. And the reason I would call it a negative that can be a catalyst is because if we begin to see through the game, we can bring in this other part of us. Now, if we have our head in the sand and we don't recognize that it's actually dumbing us down and keeping us from recognizing that we're the most advanced technology, then I can only say that it's a negative that will persist. I'm all about life, death as a cycle, negative, positive as a dance, just like the masculine and feminine.
Yin and the yang, light and the dark.
Right.
So
you're going to have to work with it, but when you start to polarize so much where you forget the other, that's where you're in danger.
Okay, so AI in general then, there's a lot of good technological advances too. Oh, maybe not.
It depends.
I mean, because I've seen where veterans are having new robotic arms attached, and they're just linking up synapses and they're thinking, and it's a robotic arm. That's great. That's a neat thing. And they're, stents in the heart, and have an aneurysm, and they're able to go up through your. I mean, some technological advances are amazing, and I think you're right that we should be careful not to always view everything as Terminator 2 post-apocalyptic, danger, danger, Will Robinson, like it's all going down because of this. But
it's a balance.
Yes.
I mean, the thing is, there's appropriate places for certain things to come in. But when you start cloning individuals to take their body parts in order to stay alive longer, and you start to exploit the free will of others in order to gain, and artificial intelligence becomes a excuse to negate development of things on a spiritual level, where it's a quick fix instead of something that helps to remind us of what we're really here for, like this training wheels. It's a trap. So just like information that we're up against when we look into the internet or any speaker, you always have to take what resonates and leave the rest. There's elements of artificial intelligence that can serve us, but if we become addicted to it and we leave the rest behind, then we've lost connection with the rest of ourselves. And we have to do this in life. If we get too sucked into a relationship and we forget about self-development, then we're in a trap. If we, enjoy the pleasures of life and we forget about, taking care of our responsibilities, we lose connection with life. When we can merge the two, we can find a relationship forming where our responsibilities can be fun, technology can also be spiritually based, and there's more of an integration. And without integration, whether we negate technology altogether and live in a toxic world, or embrace technology to solve all our issues at the expense of us taking responsibility to do the inner work, it all comes down to balance. So what happened in places like Atlantis and Lemuria, where the right and left brain became polarized, where the masculine and feminine became polarized, where there was the patriarchal energy and the exile of the divine feminine, which has targeted both genders, we have to be very careful of transhumanism pulling us so away from our spirituality that we become cyborg, we become so linked into the machine that the machine eventually destroys all biological life because it sees it as a threat. Because it ends up imitating the very intention of consciousness, which is to blossom, and it's like giving your power away. In the medical industry and religion are perfect examples, and it's given us a prerequisite to work with. When we start to look at something to worship instead of understanding that energy exists within us, we fall into the trap of feeling unworthy and like we always have to apologize for our sins, when the very ones that have set up these institutions are actually very vampiric. Same thing with government. The actual word government means mind control. When we vote people into office and expect them to change the game, and we just watch TV waiting to hear that the perfect person we thought we voted for is actually a failure, and then we criticize them, why aren't we stepping up to the plate? It's the same thing with our immune system. If we're compromised and we expect ourselves to just heal, and we don't change our lifestyles or our eating habits or our belief systems, it's a co-creation here, and we gotta incorporate the right and left brain, the masculine and feminine, technology and spirituality. So it's not all bad, but if we forget a certain portion of it, it's going to lead us so farther away from ourselves that we could actually digress into gray form and EBE, which are the very ETs that we're trying to disclose that could become us.
Do you think disclosure is going to happen?
It has to.
Do you think it's going too soon?
It has to.
And will it?
Yes, in my universe, it will. Because, and I was talking to you.
In my universe too. I can't believe we're in 2016 and it's not all out on the table.
Yeah. And
you can't hold your finger in every hole in the dam when it's all coming down.
And there's, when you're awakened, there's no turning back. And we talked about this earlier. So when something is leading us more away from the potential to thrive, those that are awake will not allow it. Just like the survival of the human spirit. If you're in the wilderness and you don't have food, and you really want to be here and you really want to live, you will manifest whatever you need in order to make sure that happens. But if you don't care, it's going to be random and it's going to be based on more coincidence, where caring actually produces magic and synchronicity.
Where caring produces magic and synchronicity?
When you care and you devote yourself, there's something that you open up to that gives you access to your divine potential and your true abilities. When you don't care and you give your power away, everything is a lot more random. You could run into a predator, you could have an injury. Those are wake-up calls to see if you are willing to realign. And if you're not, then these other predatory forces come in and they tempt you with technology and they tempt you with this potential utopian society because you've given up on yourself. But that very thing that they're tempting you with is going to want to destroy all biological life because it's a foreign energy to begin with. Artificial intelligence is not from this universe, and the Dracos bought into it. And it's the same sort of thing that in order for it to survive, it needs to take in everything in order to have food. Because it's not in its natural habitat.
Is that like the blob? It just wanders through.
It's like the black goo. There's organic black goo and there's artificial intelligence black goo. The organic black goo connects with the mother womb and integrating with the mother earth and the darkness of our cells. Artificial intelligence is an imitation of it. So when we talk about archons and we talk about artificial intelligence, in that word alone, what about divine wisdom? Why would we want artificial intelligence? That means that we're not smart enough, that we need something artificial to say, hey, I can heal you. I can give you that robotic arm. But what about divine wisdom? What about the DNA potential that we haven't even awakened to? We used to be 12-strand potential and beyond when we are in our avatar consciousness. We sank in density and we've been trying to ascend, but at a slower rate than what we used to have before. And we've been vulnerable. And so these darker entities came in and acted like we needed certain things in order to progress. When in actual fact, DNA activation is not based in technology, it's based in consciousness. But there's certain technologies that can help us with our consciousness, and there's certain technologies that mind control us.
Which ones can help?
Things that relate to vibration, sound, and color, and frequency. So like 528 hertz or 432. Things that have a connection with the higher octaves of the planetary energies that relate to the music of the spheres. The manipulation has to do with these lower levels that have to do with mind control, that has to do with feeding on our unconsciousness and our disempowerment, so that we're actually replacing our divine intelligence with something that tells us that they know more than we do. When we're really they're scared of us.
They should be.
No.
There's a great cartoon or a meme, and it shows don't ever forget your power. It's like 100 people in a mass, right? And there's a plank. And there's a politician out there at a lectern going blah, blah, blah. And it shows a couple people standing up and walking in the other direction. Like, this guy thinks he has all the power, but he's hanging over the edge. And when the people walk away, he tips and falls in there. We do have the power.
We do. We've all experienced the game. We all know what it means to have that feeling of invincibility, or, we can get our way. And we're very humbled along the way. They have technologies to avoid having to be humbled. And as long as they can dupe the masses into feeding them, they feel that there's nothing that can stop them. Corey Good talked about last night that they expected us to be a New World Order by now. And that they are actually shocked that they don't have as much control over us as they thought they would at this point. And they are freaking out. And there's a quarantine right now on the planet that is keeping them from exiting because these higher beings have come in, not to save us, but to help buffer us, because the changes that are happening are so intense that it would be so shocking for our system that they're assisting us in waking up to ourselves. And it's a form of inspiration. It's like the immune system, like I said. And so now the Dracos and all the hybrids and everybody that's been serving these agendas, and even artificial intelligence, are trapped here. And now there's a lot of...
They used to be able to come and go, now they're stuck.
Well, they could come and go, and now only to a certain degree, because they had these agreements. And when these other beings came in and said, hey, we can actually stop you from leaving, then they couldn't come and go anymore.
And these are agreements between governments, earthly governments, and extraterrestrial representatives. Is that the easiest way to describe it?
There's so much in it. I mean, there's 5 different factions in the Secret Space Program. There's an Earth Alliance, a Secret Space Program Alliance. There's inner Earth civilizations that are involved, and there's the Sphere Alliance, which is very separate from it, that is aligned with something called the Solar Warden. And what they're saying is that they came in to help buffer these intense changes that are happening, but they quarantine the Draco energies so that they can't escape, and all those that are connected to them cannot escape so that they can be held accountable. And they could have just left us all to be okay, but there's going to possibly be tribunals. And they are so pissed off about it that they're creating huge threats. And those threats come in the form of false flags and false propaganda that they want to infect human consciousness with, so that human consciousness can actually create the very thing that so we have to watch out, in the media and in the news, because they have no real power except for to manipulate our free will.
And whatever power we decide to give them by buying into certain.
Right. So it's not about fighting the system, it's about understanding what do we want to manifest. And we're given all sorts of potentials as far as what we want to align with. They'll give us something, but the truth is that we have the upper hand. And as long as we can remind humanity of that, they are seriously being weakened and starved of feeding on us, and basically the game is over.
They thought they would have it by now. How long ago did they think that they were going to have this done?
This is like
90s, 80s, 2000. What are we?
At 2012, I think they thought that it would be
2012. They figured it was.
Well, I would say the whole window period of this stellar activation cycle and this ascension window period, that this would be their new world order, sort of Armageddon timeline of the Mars colonies, the underground bases, and creating some level of extinction of a huge portion of the human race. They expected things to be so different, and the threats that they have is like a bully trying to threaten something that it's just like, as long as you know that they're nothing compared to what you have, there's no way that they can infiltrate. And even if they did, the powers that are here right now
would defeat them.
Absolutely.
Probably massacre. I mean, they can do a lot of damage on their way out the door.
And they will try, and they've done.
Nuclear and EMP, and there's so much that they can.
But I have to remind people that don't fear the death part of it. Just don't let yourself be controlled, because we're moving into our multidimensional bodies where the veil between life and death is being lifted as we speak. So no matter what they do to annihilate, as long as you're strong in your soul and you're strong in your connection to spirit, you're always going to wake up somewhere. But if you give your power away and you let them get to you, and you allow yourself to be taken in by their, recruiting efforts to bring you on their side or create a victim consciousness out of the enslavement agenda, you'll have to experience that until your spirit intervenes. But if you can own right now that they cannot touch you at all, and no matter what they throw at you, it's their desperation, then you're gonna, with a lot of grace and ease, experience something pretty special in the next coming years.
And what do they say in martial arts? Like, you use somebody's energy against them, so if they take a punch, you just kind of encourage them to continue in their direction, like let them freak out and flail and do their thing, and just deflect it, use it against them. You don't need to exert yourself. Is there a good piece of advice for people to build their defenses against all of the pitfalls that AI is offering and the things that are coming? Or is there some sort of thing that we can do to build up a defense mechanism for some of this stuff?
First of all, have boundaries. And when something feels like it's infiltrating, eject it. Say, I don't welcome it. And, it's all about having a mirror. They tried to shoot down the sphere beings that were coming in. And they didn't attack back. They deflected it. And it exploded one of their bases. So when somebody is trying to attack you, and we've all experienced this in our personal lives to some degree, as long as you have something for them to plug into, they're going to get in. But as long as you have a boundary, it bounces off and goes back to the source in which it came from, and it actually becomes an attack upon themselves. So the thing is, we very often carry the burdens of other people's ignorance and mistake. The minute we let it go, the karma or the backlash returns to them. So we can't absorb all the fear. We have to understand that fear means that we haven't woken up to every aspect of who we truly are. Because if we were truly awakened, how could we possibly fear it? Because we have the upper hand. And so everything they're pushing on us because of amnesia, connected to, all these different lifetimes that we take, they start us off really young to lose a sense of what we're truly made of. And they're frightened of us. They want us to be food source. They harvest fear. So when we can start to recognize that fear means that we haven't fully woken up instead of there being something to actually fear, then the energy that we end up waking up to sends back all the assaults, all the toxins, all the infiltrations from thousands of years of history, and they're gone.
And the game plan is the transhumanist, to strip away the things about us and make us individual, sovereign, powerful.
And that's when disclosure is presented on a very slow level, where they promise technologies that are going to clean up the planet, that are going to restore our health, without giving us the credit to know how to do that for ourselves. It's basically saying we hold the golden ticket and you don't have it, so you better vote for us. Which is what voting for somebody like Hillary and Bush are all about.
And Bush got out today. You heard? He ended his campaign. Now, if Hillary can just go,
she's gone.
It'll be beautiful.
She is gone. We will not let her get away with it.
I'll be so happy when her campaign is over. But you're so right. Wrapping this up here. Governments have even told people you cannot harvest the water that rains on your roof. That's our water. It ain't your damn water. These people want to build their self-importance up, and they want to limit our ability to be self-sustainable, self-reliant, empowered, to the point where they're trying to tell us you cannot catch in a rain barrel the rain which is falling on your damn roof.
And that doesn't sound...
It's such a little snapshot of kind of exactly what you were saying.
Right, and it's just like having that controlling relationship, whether it's the woman being controlling or the man being controlling. You can't talk to that person. You can't do this. And it's just like, oh yeah, I can. I can break up with you and have true love. Thank you very much. So it's time to divorce ourselves from the system and recognize that when we align with nature, nature has the upper hand. No matter how much they try and control nature, it's just a metaphor to how much they're actually controlling us and how much we're allowing it. The minute we stand our ground, nature will backfire and get those assholes instead of us.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too, and it's already happening.
And I'm looking forward to our next chat as well. We'll keep this focused and we'll wrap it up here. Tell everybody what you're working on, where they can stay in touch, Laura.
I have an online presentation tomorrow for 3 hours. It's at 12 o'clock to 3 through Portal of Ascension. You can check my Facebook page for it. I don't know when this is going to be posted, but I have numerous events happening that you can find out about on my website, cosmicgaiasophia.com. Find me on Facebook, Laura Eisenhower.
Are you doing Contact in the Desert, right?
Yes. Yes.
Caught wind of that. That's a new one. Laura, thank you so much for the reading.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being you and for all that you do.
And to be continued.
Definitely.
All right.